Have you ever wondered why two simple words could hold the power to completely transform your life? What if I told you that the most profound spiritual secret isn't hidden in complex texts or ancient rituals, but in two words you speak every single day without realizing their divine significance? Those two words that Jesus spoke weren't a prayer, weren't a plea to something outside himself. They were simply, I am. Has this ever happened to you? You've read this phrase 1,000 times in scripture, rushing past it as if it were merely a name or casual self-identification, only to completely miss the cosmic significance hidden in plain sight. Most spiritual seekers spend their entire lives looking for something they believe is distant, separate from themselves. They pray outward, meditate upward, reaching for a divine presence they assume must be somewhere else. But what if the greatest spiritual revelation isn't about reaching out, but recognizing what's already speaking as you? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. When Jesus declared, I am, he wasn't speaking as a limited personality with a physical body and human history. He was voicing the eternal presence of God as his only identity. This wasn't philosophy or metaphor. It was the ultimate healing principle that transformed water into wine and raised the dead through pure consciousness. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you, even shock you. It's not about adding something new to your spiritual practice. It's about recognizing what has always been true. When you truly grasp that I am is God speaking as you, everything shifts. Not because you're doing more spiritual work, not because you're becoming more worthy, but because you're finally understanding the foundation of all existence. Joel Goldsmith spent decades unraveling what Jesus really meant by these two words. He discovered that the power isn't in the words themselves, but in the consciousness behind them. When you say, I am, with spiritual awareness, you're not speaking as a limited person struggling through life. You're speaking as consciousness itself, the divine presence that is your true nature. Think about how you use these words every day without thought. I am tired. I am worried. I am not enough. With each limitation you attach to I am, you're unknowingly claiming that God, the infinite presence expressing as you, is bound by these temporary conditions. What would happen if you began to recognize the divine power speaking through these two words? The transformation isn't intellectual, it's experiential. It moves beyond theology into lived reality. When this understanding dawns in your consciousness, problems begin to dissolve, not through effort or struggle, but through recognition of what has always been true. This isn't positive thinking or manifestation techniques. It's spiritual law operating at the most fundamental level of creation. What happens in your relationships, your health, your finances, your very purpose when you finally grasp that I am is God speaking? That's what we're about to explore. If these teachings on I am consciousness have resonated with you, hit that subscribe button to join our spiritual community. We explore profound truths that transform how you experience your divine nature. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by revealing the hidden truth about how we unconsciously limit our own divine nature. Think about your daily language for a moment. How many times do you casually say phrases like, I am tired, I am broke, I am sick, or I am not good enough? These seemingly innocent statements carry a profound spiritual impact that most people completely overlook. When you attach I am to any condition or limitation, you're actually doing something extraordinary. You're identifying the infinite with the finite. You're declaring that God, The I of your being is bound by temporary circumstances. This fundamental misidentification is at the root of all human suffering. It's not what happens to you that causes pain, but what you claim I am is. This revelation transforms our entire journey of personal growth. Jesus never once said, I am sick or I am lacking. Instead, he declared, I am the resurrection, I am the light, I am the way. He was making a profound mindset shift, identifying exclusively with the infinite, never with passing conditions. Behind the scenes of every spiritual breakthrough lies this same decision, to stop defining yourself by what changes and start recognizing yourself as what remains eternally unchanged. The moment you begin to use I am only with truth, only with what is eternal and unchanging, your entire experience begins to mirror that consciousness. And here's where many spiritual seekers miss the mark entirely. They believe healing is about changing physical conditions, fixing the body, eliminating the symptom, altering circumstances. But the deepest revelations show us something far more profound. True healing isn't about changing conditions, but about changing identity. When you're facing illness, the natural temptation is to say, I'm sick and I need healing. But that very statement reinforces the illusion. The moment you claim, I am sick, you've denied the eternal truth of your being. The I that you are cannot be sick because that I is infinite spirit expressing. The body may display symptoms, yes, but that's not the I. The I am is perfect, whole, complete, unchanging amidst all changing forms. This isn't mere philosophy. It's the foundation of every authentic healing that has ever occurred. When you rest in this, knowing healing happens naturally, not through struggle or force, but through recognition. The body aligns with the consciousness that animates it. The same principle applies to every area of life. Not, I am poor and need supply, but I am is the infinite abundance of God made visible. Not, I am alone and need love, but I am is the presence of love itself. This isn't denial of circumstances, it's recognition of what lies beneath all circumstances. Most of us have been taught to approach transformation from the outside in. We try to manipulate conditions, control outcomes, force changes. But the most powerful path works from the inside out, from identity to experience, from cause to effect. When you recognize what you truly are, your outer world has no choice but to reflect that recognition. If you've experienced even a glimpse of this truth in your own life, write in the comments, I am unlimited. This simple declaration might just be the beginning of your greatest breakthrough. Let's explore this profound paradigm shift that happens when you truly understand the power of I am. Most people live their entire lives from the perspective of effect, constantly reacting to what's happening around them, to circumstances, to conditions, to other people's behaviors. It's an exhausting journey of always responding to what appears in the world of form. But the revelation that transforms everything is this: you can shift from living at the level of effect to living from the level of cause. This isn't about controlling the world, it's about changing the consciousness from which you experience the world. When you truly understand I am, you stop reacting to appearances and instead rest in the infinite presence that you are. From this internal revolution, something remarkable unfolds. Every need is met, every problem begins to dissolve, not through struggle or manipulation or force of will, but through spiritual recognition of what has always been true. This is the blueprint that Jesus demonstrated in his life. He never fought against conditions. He simply recognized what was real beneath the appearance. Behind the scenes of every miracle is this same principle. Water turned to wine not because Jesus manipulated molecules, but because he recognized that the I am is the only substance. The storms calmed not through supernatural intervention, but through the natural authority of one who knows what I truly is. This mindset transformation isn't theoretical, it's intensely practical. Consider something as universal as physical pain. When you experience discomfort, the automatic response is to say, I am in pain. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Who is the I that claims to be in pain? Let me share what happened to a woman named Margaret, who discovered this truth. She'd suffered with chronic pain for 7 years. Doctors found nothing wrong. She'd tried every treatment, every therapy, every healing method available. Nothing worked. She came to a spiritual teacher, desperate, exhausted, ready to give up hope entirely. The teacher didn't pray for her. He didn't treat her condition. He simply asked her one question. Who is the I that says, I am in pain? Margaret was confused at first. I am. I'm the one suffering, she replied. But the teacher pressed deeper. Is the I am you speak of capable of pain? Can infinite spirit hurt? Can God suffer? She sat in silence for nearly 20 minutes. Then something shifted in her consciousness. She realized she'd been identifying her true self, the I am, with a body and its sensations. The pain didn't belong to the I that she truly was. It belonged to a false sense of identity. Subscribe now to continue your journey into I am consciousness. Every video we share unveils another layer of this timeless wisdom that Jesus and spiritual masters throughout history have taught. Within 3 weeks, her pain began to diminish. Within 2 months, it was completely gone. Not because she fought it, but because she stopped claiming it as her identity. She stopped saying, I am in pain, and began recognizing the body is experiencing sensations, but the I that I am is whole and perfect. This isn't positive thinking or mind over matter. It's recognizing the truth of being. Pain may still appear in the body, but it no longer defines the I. When you grasp this distinction, suffering begins to lose its grip. The awareness that witnesses pain cannot itself be in pain. The I that observes sensations remains untouched by what it observes. If you've ever experienced a moment where you felt separate from your pain, even for just a few seconds, type, I am free, in the comments below. That glimpse of freedom is your true nature revealing itself. This powerful principle extends far beyond healing physical discomfort. It revolutionizes every area of life, including one that causes tremendous suffering for so many: financial struggle. Behind the scenes of every financial breakthrough lies the same revelation. Abundance isn't something you chase or acquire. It's what you are. Consider a businessman named Robert, who experienced this mindset revolution firsthand. He was on the edge of bankruptcy, drowning in debt, watching everything he'd built crumble around him. Every morning he'd wake up thinking, I am failing. I am losing everything. His prayers were desperate pleas for God to save his business, to send customers, to provide a miracle from outside himself. Then Robert encountered this transformative teaching about the true meaning of I am. He realized he'd been claiming lack as his identity. He'd been declaring I am broke instead of recognizing that the I of his being is infinite supply. This was his pivotal decision point. Would he continue identifying with limitation, or would he align with the truth of his being? He began a daily practice. Every morning before looking at numbers or emails, he'd sit quietly and recognize I am is the abundance of God. I am is infinite resource. I am is divine intelligence expressing. The journey wasn't instantaneous. It took 4 months, not 4 days. But slowly ideas came, connections appeared, opportunities opened that had been invisible before. His business didn't just survive, it transformed into something more aligned with his true purpose. The change wasn't in his circumstances first, it was in his consciousness. When he stopped identifying with lack, abundance had space to flow through him naturally. This wasn't magical thinking, it was recognizing reality beneath appearance. The same hidden truth applies to perhaps the most challenging human struggle: addiction. When someone is in the grip of dependency, the common identity statement is, "I am an addict." This identity becomes a prison, reinforcing the very patterns they're trying to break. But the revelation that changes everything is this: beneath all behavior patterns lies pure awareness, untouched by dependency. A woman named Sarah had struggled with alcohol addiction for 15 years. Treatment centers, therapy, support groups, all helped temporarily, but the identity remained. I am an alcoholic. Then she encountered this teaching about I am consciousness. She began questioning, is the I that I truly am capable of addiction? Can infinite spirit, perfect wholeness, complete freedom be addicted to anything? She realized that her true identity, the I am, was already free, already whole. The addiction belonged to a false sense of self, not to her essential nature. This didn't replace her practical recovery work. She still needed support, still needed tools for the human journey. But this recognition provided the foundation from which true and lasting freedom could emerge naturally. When she stopped saying, I am an alcoholic, and began recognizing, addiction has appeared in my experience, but the I that I am is already free, something profound shifted. The compulsion began to lose its grip. The endless cycle of struggle weakened. She found herself making different choices naturally, not through willpower, but through recognition of what she truly was. If you've ever experienced a moment of unexpected freedom from a limiting pattern, whether financial worry, addiction, or any other struggle, write I am freedom in the comments. That glimpse reveals your true nature shining through. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this profound understanding transforms from an intellectual concept into a lived experience. The journey of embodying I am consciousness isn't merely about understanding the idea, it's about practicing the presence. This daily discipline becomes the foundation for genuine spiritual awakening. Most seekers get caught in the trap of spiritual concepts without spiritual experience. They can discuss theories brilliantly while missing the direct encounter with truth. The revelation that changes everything is this: living the I am requires regular periods of silence where you detach from all personal identity and rest in pure awareness. This practice isn't complicated, but it does require consistency. Each day, set aside time to sit in silence, not to ask for anything, not to change anything, simply to remember what you are. Begin by noticing all the identities you typically claim: parent, professional, partner, the roles you play, the stories you tell about yourself. Then one by one, release them all. Behind the scenes of this meditation, something profound is happening. You're stripping away the costume of personality to reveal the eternal presence that has always been there. This isn't about repeating words or affirmations. It's about experiencing the consciousness behind the words. In that space of pure awareness, you recognize, I am. The blueprint for this practice is simple but transformative. Start with 5 minutes daily. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and release all concepts of who you think you are. Don't try to become anything. Don't try to achieve anything. Simply rest as awareness itself. This isn't an exercise in doing. It's a revelation of being. From this daily discipline emerges a milestone discovery that transforms all human interaction. When you recognize that both you and others are expressions of the same I am, relationships undergo a fundamental revolution. You stop trying to change people and instead see through their behavior to their true nature. Consider how this impacts even the most challenging relationships. A woman named Jennifer had a mother who was critical, controlling, and emotionally manipulative. For years, Jennifer tried everything to change her mother's behavior. Confrontation, boundaries, therapy, distance. Nothing worked. The relationship remained a source of ongoing pain and frustration. Then Jennifer encountered this teaching about I am consciousness. She began to see that beneath her mother's difficult behavior was the same infinite presence that expressed as herself, just covered by layers of fear, wounding, and forgotten identity. This recognition didn't mean she suddenly tolerated harmful behavior. It meant she addressed the root cause rather than just reacting to symptoms. She stopped seeing her mother as the problem and started recognizing her as I am, who had forgotten who she was. From this mindset shift, Jennifer's responses naturally changed. She no longer took her mother's criticism personally. She responded with compassion rather than defense. She set boundaries from love rather than resentment. The journey wasn't overnight, but within 6 months, the relationship began to transform. Her mother's criticism gradually decreased. Conversations became less combative. Moments of genuine connection emerged, not because Jennifer had successfully manipulated or changed her mother, but because her own shift in consciousness created space for transformation. This isn't about condoning harmful behavior. It's about seeing through it to the truth that lies beneath. Every difficult person in your life is simply the infinite I am who has forgotten their identity. When you hold this recognition, you become an agent of awakening rather than a participant in conflict. If you've experienced even a glimpse of seeing beyond someone's behavior to their true nature, type I see you in the comments. That moment of recognition is the beginning of healing in all relationships. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring perhaps the most profound liberation that comes from I am consciousness, the end of fear. Think about what generates anxiety in your daily experience. Isn't it always some variation of the belief that who you are can be threatened, harmed, or diminished by circumstances? This core insecurity drives most human suffering. But here's the breakthrough revelation that changes everything. When you truly understand that I am is God speaking as you recognize that what you truly are cannot be threatened, harmed, or diminished by anything. This isn't wishful thinking or self-deception. It's the recognition of an eternal truth that lies beneath all temporal experience. Consider David, a man who lived in constant anxiety about financial security. Every market downturn, every unexpected bill, every career setback triggered overwhelming fear. He tried everything to manage his anxiety. Meditation techniques, breathing exercises, positive affirmations, nothing provided lasting relief. Then David encountered this teaching about I am consciousness. For the first time, he glimpsed a profound truth. What he truly was existed prior to all conditions and remained unchanged, regardless of circumstances. The I that was aware of fear wasn't itself fearful. The awareness that noticed anxiety wasn't itself anxious. He began a practice of sitting quietly each morning and asking, "What am I that remains unchanged through all changing circumstances? What is this I that is aware of thoughts, emotions, and sensations, but isn't any of them?" In those moments of inquiry, something shifted in his consciousness. Fear didn't disappear instantly, but it no longer defined his identity. He stopped saying, "I am afraid," and began recognizing fear appears in consciousness, but the I that I am remains untouched by it. This subtle shift created a revolution in his experience. When market downturns happened, he still noticed concern arising, but he no longer identified with it. When unexpected expenses appeared, he responded practically without the emotional overwhelm that once dominated him. This transformation reveals a hidden truth about your essential nature. The I am isn't something you possess, it's what you are. It's the pure awareness that witnesses all thoughts, feelings, and sensations without being any of them. Most people spend their lives completely identified with the contents of consciousness, the thoughts, emotions, sensations, and perceptions that come and go. But behind the scenes of all experience is the awareness that perceives it all. This awareness exists before thought, beyond emotion, and is the unchanging context in which all experiences appear. It's what you are before you think about what you are. It's the consciousness that's reading these words right now. When someone asks, "Who are you?" you typically respond with roles, histories, qualities, and stories. But these are all appearances in consciousness, not consciousness itself. The most profound journey is the recognition that you are the awareness in which all these identities appear, not the identities themselves. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's immediately verifiable in your own experience. Right now, notice what's aware of reading these words. Notice what's aware of any thoughts or feelings arising as you read. That aware presence doesn't come and go. It doesn't change with circumstances. It's the one constant in all your experience, the I am that you truly are. If you've ever experienced a moment of pure awareness, even just for a second, where you were simply present without being caught in thought or emotion, write, "I am aware" in the comments. That glimpse is your true nature revealing itself to you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what may be the most revolutionary insight of all. For centuries, spiritual seekers have been taught to pursue God as something outside themselves, a distant presence to be reached through prayer, ritual, or devotion. The entire spiritual journey has been framed as a quest to find something that seems perpetually beyond our grasp. But the revelation that transforms everything is this: when you truly grasp that I am is God speaking as you, the entire search ends. Not because you've given up, but because you've discovered what you've been seeking has been the seeker all along. The divine isn't something to attain, but the very consciousness through which you're experiencing these words right now. Consider the profound paradigm shift this creates. Instead of climbing a spiritual mountain hoping to eventually reach the summit, you recognize that what you seek is the very awareness that's doing the seeking. This doesn't diminish the divine, it reveals its omnipresence. God isn't elsewhere waiting to be found. God is the I that is aware in this and every moment. A woman named Claire had spent 20 years on an intense spiritual journey. Ashrams in India, meditation retreats, workshops with renowned teachers, countless books and practices. Despite accumulating impressive spiritual knowledge, she still felt something was missing. The divine remained an abstract concept rather than a lived reality. Then she encountered this teaching about I am consciousness. For the first time, she considered a revolutionary question. What if what I've been seeking is what's aware right now? What if God isn't the object of awareness, but awareness itself? In that moment of recognition, the search that had driven her for decades simply dissolved. She wasn't less devoted. She was more authentically connected. She hadn't abandoned spirituality. She discovered its living essence. The shift wasn't from seeking to indifference, but from seeking to finding. This wasn't the end of her spiritual journey, but its true beginning. Not as a search for what's missing, but as a celebration of what's always present. This profound insight transforms how we approach everyday challenges through its practical application. The understanding of I am isn't just philosophical. It revolutionizes health, finances, relationships, and purpose by allowing you to operate from an entirely different level of consciousness. Take health, for instance. When physical symptoms appear, most people immediately identify with the condition, I am sick. But from I am consciousness, you recognize the body is showing symptoms while the I remains whole. You don't deny the appearance. You simply don't confuse it with your identity. This isn't rejecting medical care. It's providing the consciousness from which healing most naturally occurs. In finances, instead of claiming "I am broke" or "I am struggling," you recognize that the "I am" is infinite abundance expressing. This doesn't mean ignoring practical steps or pretending bills don't exist. It means addressing them from a consciousness of wholeness rather than lack, allowing solutions to emerge naturally from this expanded awareness. The same principle transforms relationships, career decisions, and life purpose. It's not about denying human experiences, but about recognizing the divine reality that underlies and interpenetrates all of them. When you operate from "I am" consciousness, you respond to life's challenges from a foundation of wholeness rather than deficiency, allowing intuitive guidance to emerge without effort or strain. If you've experienced even a moment where you realize that what you were seeking has been here all along, type "It's already here" in the comments. That recognition is the beginning of true spiritual freedom. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring one of Jesus' most challenging teachings: love your enemies. Most people find this instruction impossible or naive. After all, how can you love someone who has harmed you, betrayed you, or actively works against your well-being? It seems to contradict basic human instinct for self-protection, but from "I am" consciousness, this teaching makes perfect sense. When you recognize that the divine speaks as "I am" in you, you must also recognize that it speaks as "I am" in everyone else, even those who appear as enemies. The person attacking you isn't your enemy, but the infinite I, who has temporarily forgotten their true identity. Consider a profound example of this mindset: revolution in action. A man had a business partner who betrayed him, stole clients, spread destructive lies, and actively tried to destroy his reputation. The natural human reaction would be revenge, anger, and hatred. But this man had been practicing "I am" consciousness for years. He didn't pretend the betrayal didn't hurt. He acknowledged the pain of the experience fully, but he refused to see his partner as an enemy. Instead, he recognized this person's true identity as "I am," just, confused, and operating from fear in the moment. This wasn't a passive stance or a spiritual bypass. It was a recognition of a deeper reality beneath appearances. The revelation that followed was astonishing. As he held this consciousness, refusing to engage in hatred or revenge, something shifted in the field of experience. His former partner's schemes began to fail. The lies were exposed without the man saying a word. Within a year, the partner reached out and apologized, making full restitution. This wasn't because he manipulated outcomes or enacted some spiritual strategy. It was because consciousness operating from truth is infinitely more powerful than all human scheming operating from falsehood. When you refuse to see enemies and instead recognize the "I am" in everyone, even those behaving harmfully, you access a level of spiritual power that transforms situations without force. Behind every conflict resolution stands this same principle. When you stop seeing others as separate from yourself, as threats to be defended against, the entire foundation of conflict dissolves. This doesn't mean you condone harmful behavior. It means you address its source, forgotten identity, rather than just reacting to its symptoms. This leads us to the ultimate revelation of "I am" consciousness, its timeless nature. The "I am" exists only in the eternal now, not "I will be" when circumstances improve, not "I should be if I were more spiritual," not "I'm trying to be." Through effort and practice, simply eternally, completely, "I am." Most people live caught between regret about the past and anxiety about the future, missing the only moment that's ever real, this one. But when you recognize that the I of your being exists only in the present moment, you're freed from the endless cycle of time-bound thinking. You discover that what you are seeking to become through time is already present as your essential nature. Living from this recognition transforms your entire world from the inside out. You stop postponing life, waiting for some future condition to make you whole. You stop defining yourself by past mistakes or achievements. You rest in the eternal now, as the infinite presence expressing uniquely as you in this moment. This isn't an altered state to achieve. It's your natural state when you stop identifying with what you're not. It's the consciousness that was present before you had a name, before you accumulated a history, before you developed a personality. And it remains unchanged through all the stories that have unfolded since. If you've experienced even a moment of recognizing yourself as the timeless I am, beyond all personal identity, share I am timeless in the comments. That glimpse reveals your true nature shining through the costume of time. As we reach this moment together, I hope you can feel the profound simplicity of what we've explored. This isn't just philosophical theory. It's the practical reality of your being that's available in every moment. The words I am contain the entire secret of spiritual power because they point to what you truly are beneath all appearances. When you recognize that the divine speaks as I am through you, everything transforms, not because you've gained something new, but because you've remembered what has always been true. This remembrance isn't a destination you reach through time, but a recognition that's available right now as you listen to these words. If this message has resonated within you, if you felt even a flicker of recognition as we've explored these truths together, I'd love for you to type I am awakening in the comments below. Your words become a declaration of this recognition taking root in your consciousness. I create these videos because this understanding has transformed my own life, dissolving problems that once seemed insurmountable. If you've found value in our exploration today, consider subscribing to join our community of seekers who are discovering the power of I am consciousness together. Each video builds upon these foundational truths, offering practical ways to embody them in daily life. A simple like on this video helps others find this message who might be searching for exactly this understanding. The algorithm responds to your engagement, carrying these words to those who need them most. There's a video right here that explores how to apply I am consciousness specifically to healing relationships. If that's an area where you're seeking transformation, click and continue with me there. The same principles we've discussed today become even more powerful when applied to our connections with others. Thank you for being here, for listening with an open heart, and for recognizing the infinite presence that speaks as I am through you. That recognition is the beginning of a journey that never ends but transforms everything along the way. When the veil of separation begins to dissolve within your consciousness, there arises a gentle stillness, a knowing that what you have long sought has never been apart from you. The truth that life and its source are one ceases to be a doctrine or belief. It becomes an inner realization that stirs every fiber of your being. You awaken to the awareness that there is no power outside of you, no distant presence to be invoked, for the fullness of the infinite already lives within the quiet sanctuary of your soul. As this realization deepens, the anxious grasping of the mind begins to fall away. The need to reach, to strive, to plead for divine favor is replaced by the profound peace of recognition. You begin to sense that the same life that breathes the stars into existence breathes through you now. You do not think this truth. You feel it as a radiant current flowing silently through every cell of your being. Then, in that holy silence, something extraordinary unfolds. You no longer see yourself as a limited self trying to touch the infinite. You are the infinite, expressing as individual being. You behold the world anew, not as a battleground of opposites, but as a seamless unfolding of one harmonious life. Even what once seemed discordant reveals itself as the movement of a greater wholeness you can now perceive. To live from this consciousness is to walk without fear, for you have found the center that nothing can disturb. It is to know that every need is met before it is spoken, that every path is illumined before you take a step. The struggle of becoming ends, and the joy of being begins. And so, within this sacred realization, the heart rests. The outer world may still whirl and change, but you abide in the still point of eternal assurance. You have come home not to a place, but to the awareness that there has never been any distance between the life that is you and the life that is all. Be still now, and let that truth live itself through you. The illusion of separation dissolves. True awakening begins when one realizes that there is no distance between the individual and the divine source. The sense of separation fades, and the soul recognizes its oneness with infinite life. Inner stillness reveals divine presence. When the mind becomes quiet and receptive, the awareness of divine unity naturally arises within. The infinite is not reached through effort or belief, but through inner stillness and direct realization. From seeking to being, the struggle to attain spiritual truth gives way to peaceful recognition. You no longer strive to find the presence. You awaken to the fact that you are the expression of that presence. Life becomes a harmonious unfolding. With the awakening of oneness, fear, and conflict dissolve. What once appeared as chaos or discord is seen as the perfect movement of a single, unified life expressing itself through all forms, resting in the eternal assurance of oneness. In the fullness of realization, there is deep peace and freedom. Every need is met from within, and the heart rests in the unshakable awareness that the life within and the life universal are one and the same. When the illusion of separation dissolves, there awakens a quiet transformation within the deepest chamber of consciousness. For so long, the human mind has lived in duality, believing itself to be a creature apart from its source, a wanderer seeking something lost, a child yearning for the presence of a distant father. Yet this sense of apartness has never been real. It was but a shadow cast by the mind's belief in its own independence. When that belief begins to fade, the first light of truth dawns within the soul, and it is as though 1,000 burdens gently slip away. In that moment of awakening, the heart perceives something that words cannot contain. It is not an intellectual understanding, nor is it the acceptance of a comforting idea. It is an inner recognition, spiritual quickening that whispers, "I and the infinite are not two." This realization comes not through study or striving, but through the stillness that opens when the self's restless search ends. Suddenly, you know not as thought, but as being that the life animating your breath is the same life that sustains the universe. The sun, the wind, the pulse of your own heart are movements of the same divine energy expressing in infinite forms. As this awareness deepens, every sense of isolation begins to dissolve. You no longer stand apart from the world, observing it as something outside of yourself. You feel the life that flows through the trees, the same life that speaks in silence through your own soul. The boundaries between inner and outer fade, and existence reveals itself as a single, living presence, unfolding in countless ways. You realize that every being, every atom, every heartbeat is included in the same wholeness that you are. There is no me and that. There is only the infinite continuum of being. In this state of knowing, fear loses its foundation. How can fear remain when there is nothing outside to threaten, nothing separate to protect? The anxious self that once fought for survival dissolves into the peace of unity. You do not conquer fear, it simply fades, for the one who feared no longer exists. What remains is a vast, luminous awareness, quiet, unhurried, yet alive with divine intelligence. You no longer look outward for safety or inward for escape, for both directions lead to the same presence. When this realization begins to live within you, love takes on a new meaning. It is not the emotional warmth that flows between two separate beings, but the effortless recognition that all life is your own life. Compassion becomes natural, for you see yourself in every face and every form. The suffering of others stirs you not with pity, but with the clear understanding that the same life expresses through their journey and yours. Judgment, resentment, and superiority lose their ground, for the distinctions that gave them power have dissolved in the light of oneness. In daily living, this awareness does not remove you from the world. It transforms how you move through it. You may still perform the same tasks, speak the same words, meet the same people, but something invisible has changed. The source of your action no longer springs from personal will or fear of lack. It flows from the silent fullness of being itself. You do not seek to control life. You allow life to express itself through you. Each act becomes sacred, each encounter a reflection of the same divine wholeness. There are moments when the old sense of separation may seem to return, when the mind's noise pulls you outward again. Yet even then, something deeper remains unmoved, observing quietly. You begin to realize that this silent witness has always been there, untouched by thought, untouched by circumstance. It is the same awareness that was present before you were born and will remain after all forms pass away. To live from that awareness is to be free, not in the sense of escaping life's conditions, but in living as the very essence of life itself. In this freedom, gratitude arises naturally, not gratitude for something, but gratitude as something. It is not the mind saying thank you to a higher power. It is the soul singing in harmony with itself. You recognize that everything you have ever longed for was never missing. The search was the dream. The awakening is the return to what has always been. When the illusion of separation dissolves, the entire fabric of perception shifts. The world is no longer a collection of objects and others, but a radiant tapestry of one living presence appearing as many. You walk through life as through a sacred field, aware that each step, each breath, each heartbeat is the movement of the infinite, revealing itself as you. There is nothing to attain, nothing to prove, only to be. And in that being, you discover that you have never been separate, never been lost, never been apart. You have only awakened to the timeless truth that what you are and what life is have always been one and the same. When the mind becomes still, a door opens to a dimension of awareness that has always been present but seldom recognized. The noise of thought, the endless motion of desire and resistance has long veiled the gentle whisper of truth that abides within. In quietude, this inner presence begins to reveal itself not as something to be achieved or acquired, but as something eternally here. When the mind ceases its restless activity, the heart begins to hear the silent language of the infinite. It speaks not in words or symbols, but in a profound feeling of peace, an assurance that life is whole, complete, and lovingly sustained from within itself. This stillness is not the absence of thought alone. It is a sacred space where the sense of personal striving fades. It is the end of the search for divine favor, for understanding, for proof. In its place arises a tender awareness that what we have been seeking lies closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. The divine presence does not announce itself through thunder or light. It dawns like the soft light before sunrise, revealing a world that was always there but unseen. To rest in this awareness is to touch eternity within time, to feel the pulse of infinite life beating in the quiet rhythm of one's own heart. As this inner stillness deepens, the false belief in a distant power begins to crumble. The mind has been conditioned to think of the divine as something far away, a being to be worshipped, an authority to be appeased, or a mystery to be solved. Yet in the silence, all such images dissolve. You begin to sense that there is no separation between the seeker and the sought, no distance between prayer and its answer. The very act of being still is itself communion, for in stillness, the individual consciousness merges with the universal. It is as though a wave, after a lifetime of searching for the ocean, suddenly realizes it has never been apart from it. There is an exquisite simplicity in this realization. Nothing dramatic happens outwardly. The world continues in its usual rhythm, but inwardly, something shifts profoundly. The center of your awareness moves from the restless activity of mind to the calm presence of spirit. You no longer feel compelled to control, to justify, or to explain life. The urge to analyze every event or force an outcome begins to fade, replaced by quiet trust in the invisible rhythm of being. You come to understand that life is self-sustained, that divine order governs all, and that your role is not to command it, but to yield to it. In that yielding, a new kind of strength arises, not the strength of will or intellect, but the unshakable power of harmony. From this center of silence, decisions flow effortlessly, words carry peace, and actions become natural expressions of wisdom. You begin to see that everything you need is already unfolding from within. Guidance, supply, love, and healing. These are not external gifts, but inner unveilings of the same presence that animates all life. You discover that prayer is not asking but listening, not reaching but resting in the awareness of divine completeness. This inner stillness transforms how you relate to the world. People, events, and circumstances no longer hold the same power to disturb or define you. You perceive them as expressions of the one presence, each serving its purpose in the great unfolding of life. Even challenges become occasions for grace, for in the silence you sense that behind every appearance lies a perfect order, waiting to be seen. The heart becomes calm amid turmoil, patient amid delay, compassionate amid misunderstanding. You respond to life from love rather than fear, from peace rather than reaction. In the stillness, the mind ceases to seek truth as a possession, for it realizes that truth is what it already is. Every attempt to capture it in words or doctrines fades away. There is only the living awareness of being, the recognition that all life is divine expression. You begin to walk softly through the world, aware that each moment, each breath, each face reflects the same silent presence that lives within you. The divine is no longer something to reach for. It is the ground upon which you stand, the life through which you move, the consciousness that knows itself as all. And so, in the heart of stillness, you discover that silence is not empty, it is full. It is the fullness of divine being, the quiet radiance that holds galaxies in order and breathes peace into the smallest heartbeat. When you dwell in that silence, you need no assurance, no proof, no sign, for you have touched the eternal presence that neither comes nor goes. You have found the wellspring of all joy, all wisdom, all love, arising from within the sanctuary of your own being. There comes a moment in the inward journey when the long striving to reach something higher begins to dissolve, and a deep, wordless understanding takes its place. For so long, the mind has labored under the belief that spiritual fulfillment lies somewhere ahead to be attained through effort, devotion, or the accumulation of wisdom. Yet when the heart grows still enough, it perceives that the very striving has veiled the reality it sought. The truth cannot be reached by pursuit, for it is not distant, it is already the essence of what we are. The path from seeking to being is not one of movement, but of awakening, a recognition that there is nowhere to go, for the infinite has always been the ground beneath our every step. In the beginning, the seeker prays, studies, and disciplines the mind, believing that if enough is done, a light will appear. But gradually, through the weariness of effort, a subtler awareness dawns, that every act of seeking affirms a sense of lack. As long as one is searching for the presence, one is unconsciously declaring its absence. The mind's restlessness, though sincere, keeps the heart turned outward, waiting for something to come. But when the futility of that search is truly felt not as despair, but as surrender, the light begins to shine, not from beyond, but from within. It is the moment when you cease to ask, cease to reach, and simply be. Being is not an achievement. It is the eternal state that underlies all appearances. When you stop striving to become spiritual, you discover that you have never been anything else. The same life that breathes through the prophets and sages breathes through you now. The same peace that dwells in the silence of the universe is present in your heart this instant. To know this is not to think it, but to rest in it, to live as that awareness without the interference of the anxious mind. The desire to get there fades, and you realize there is no there. Every attempt to reach the divine melts into the recognition that the divine has always been expressing as you. As this awareness grows, the endless pendulum of hope and disappointment ceases to swing. You no longer measure progress by signs or experiences, for the need to prove your nearness to the infinite disappears. You begin to live from a quiet center, where every act, whether washing dishes, speaking to a friend, or sitting in meditation, becomes an expression of wholeness. The sacred and the ordinary merge, and life itself becomes a living prayer. You are no longer the one seeking illumination. You are illumination unfolding in form. From this state of being, peace ceases to be a goal and becomes your natural atmosphere. You do not try to make the mind still, for the stillness is already there when the striving ends. The heart rests in a vast, unshakable calm, untouched by outer conditions. Success and failure, gain and loss, praise and blame lose their hold, for they belong to the realm of becoming. You no longer need to justify your worth or defend your path, for you see that there is no separate self to defend. The personal I, which once toiled for enlightenment, dissolves into the ocean of beingness, and what remains is pure awareness, simple, radiant, free. In this consciousness, service flows naturally. You no longer act from obligation or ambition, but from the quiet impulse of love that arises from within. Every gesture becomes an offering, not to earn divine favor, but because divine life expresses itself as giving. There is no effort, no calculation, only the spontaneous outpouring of the infinite through the form it inhabits. To the world, it may appear as kindness, creativity, or wisdom. To you, it is simply life being itself. The transition from seeking to being is not marked by thunder or revelation. It is more like the soft dawning of morning light, gradual, gentle, yet irresistible. One day, you realize that the longing that once drove you has vanished, replaced by quiet fulfillment. You no longer pray for peace, you live in it. You no longer reach for love, you are love expressing itself. You no longer wait for God, you rest in God's own awareness as your very self. And when you live from this realization, the world reflects it back. Relationships soften, circumstances align, and even challenges lose their sting. Life unfolds effortlessly, guided by an invisible harmony that was always there, though unseen. You move through each moment, not as a seeker of truth, but as truth in motion. What was once a search for something higher has become a simple, radiant beingness, the peace of knowing that all you ever desired to find, you already are. When awareness awakens to the truth of oneness, the entire vision of life is transformed. What once appeared as a world divided between good and evil, gain and loss, joy and sorrow begins to reveal itself as a single, harmonious unfolding. The mind, which has been trained to judge, resist, and control, gradually yields to a higher perception, the perception that there is only one life, expressing through infinite forms. This realization does not come as an abstract idea, but as a living awareness, an inner seeing that everything is connected in perfect order, even when the outer sense cannot understand. It is as if a veil has been lifted, and the dance of opposites is now seen as the movement of one divine rhythm. When you begin to live from this understanding, fear loosens its grip. Fear was born from the belief in separation, the idea that there is something outside yourself that can harm or deprive you. But as you come to know the unity of life, the need for defense falls away. You no longer struggle to protect what is yours, because you realize that nothing is truly yours or another's. It all belongs to the one presence manifesting as many. The currents of life flow freely through you, and you trust that what is meant to come will come, and what is meant to go will go, all within the perfect timing of the infinite. This is not resignation, it is sacred trust. It is the deep assurance that life is self-sustained and that harmony governs all who are willing to yield to its order. As this consciousness unfolds, the world no longer appears chaotic. Where others see conflict, you perceive balance. Where they see loss, you sense renewal. You begin to notice how every experience, whether joyful or painful, serves the same purpose to reveal more of the hidden wholeness that underlies existence. Even suffering becomes a teacher, not a punishment. You start to see that behind every appearance of discord, there is a movement toward harmony, a silent correction guided by a wisdom beyond human reason. The mind, once restless in its attempts to fix or change life, learns to rest in awareness and allow life to reveal its perfection in its own way. In relationships, this awareness brings a profound gentleness. The tendency to judge or condemn others fades, for you recognize that the same life animates them as animates you. Their actions, like yours, arise from the unfolding of consciousness at the level of their awareness. Compassion becomes natural, not as a moral duty, but as a simple recognition of shared being. When someone harms you, you no longer see an enemy, you see an expression of the same divine, life still awakening to itself. Forgiveness ceases to be an act of will and becomes an effortless response. For there is nothing to forgive when no true separation exists. In this light, even the ordinary events of daily life are transfigured. Work, conversation, rest, and movement all carry the same quiet holiness. You no longer seek to escape from the world to find peace. Peace is what you bring to the world. You understand that heaven is not elsewhere. It is here, now, in the consciousness that perceives unity. Each moment, no matter how mundane, becomes a portal into eternity. You begin to feel the sacred in the simple, the divine in the commonplace. A leaf falling, a child laughing, a stranger passing on the street, all become revelations of the same presence. To live in this awareness is to move through life with grace. You no longer rush to make things happen or resist what arises. You flow with the unfolding of the divine pattern. Circumstances lose their power to disturb, for you trust the wisdom that shapes them. Even when storms come, you rest in the stillness beneath the waves, knowing that all is well within the great whole. The heart that once clung to control now opens in surrender, And through that surrender comes true freedom, the freedom to live as an instrument of harmony, guided not by intellect, but by the silent intuition of spirit. This transformation does not mean that challenges disappear. Rather, your relationship with them changes. You see them as movements within the one life, opportunities for the divine to express more fully through you. The old habit of labeling experiences as good or bad fades, replaced by quiet acceptance and wonder. You realize that every moment carries within it the presence of the infinite, and that nothing can ever be outside that presence. The world remains as it is, yet you perceive it through new eyes, eyes that see the unity, beauty, and perfection that were always there, hidden beneath the illusion of separation. And so life becomes a harmonious unfolding, not because the outer forms have changed, but because you have awakened to the truth behind them. You no longer live in opposition to life, but in cooperation with it. Every breath, every step, every encounter becomes a movement in the eternal symphony of being. There is no longer a separate you striving to survive or succeed. There is only the infinite expressing through the form called you, unfolding itself in perfect balance, peace, and love. When the awareness of oneness becomes a living realization, a profound stillness settles within the heart. It is not the quiet that comes from absence of noise, but the deep silence born of inner assurance. You begin to know, beyond all argument, that life itself is whole and self-complete. You no longer need to struggle to hold the world together, for you perceive that it was never broken. Every need, every unfolding, every experience arises from the same infinite source that animates your being. You rest, not in indifference, but in the luminous certainty that the infinite knows how to express itself perfectly through you. This is the peace that passes understanding, not something you attain, but something that reveals itself when resistance ceases. In this consciousness, the restlessness that once drove the mind loses its power. You no longer reach outward for validation or security, for you recognize that all outer forms are reflections of an inner state. You have ceased to live as one trying to make life happen, and instead you allow life to happen through you. Each breath becomes a prayer without words, a silent acknowledgement that the life you live is not your own, but the infinite expressing itself as you. This awareness brings a quiet confidence, not born of pride, but of surrender. You know that what you are is sustained by something greater than thought, greater than form, a presence that cannot be seen yet makes all seeing possible. As this realization deepens, your relationship with the world changes. You move through your days with a sense of sacred ease, untouched by anxiety about tomorrow or regret for yesterday. You begin to notice how effortlessly the rhythm of life unfolds when you cease to interfere. The very forces that once seemed to oppose you begin to work in harmony with your intent, for your intent and life's intent have become one. You do not demand outcomes. You simply rest in the knowing that the outcome already exists within the divine order. What comes to you is what belongs to you by right of consciousness, and what departs was never yours to keep. There is no loss, only transformation, no failure, only completion in another form. This state of rest is not laziness or detachment, it is the highest form of activity. For the mind may be still, but the spirit is fully alive. You act when action arises naturally, speak when words are given, and remain silent when silence is wisdom. There is no strain, no forcing, for all things move in the effortless rhythm of divine intelligence. It is as though you have discovered a current flowing beneath the surface of life, and instead of swimming against it, you now move with it. In this flow, every step is guided, every need is met, and every encounter has purpose. You begin to see that life's challenges are not obstacles, but invitations, opportunities for the infinite to reveal itself in new ways. Even in the presence of uncertainty, you, untroubled. You sense that within the stillness of your being lies the blueprint of every unfolding. Answers come not through effort, but through quiet recognition. You find that guidance is not given in the noise of thought, but in the silence between thoughts. The more you rest in that silence, the more clearly life reveals its direction. You no longer plead for divine help, for you know that the presence which is your life needs no prompting to express perfection. It already knows the way, and it reveals that way in its own perfect time. From this awareness, gratitude arises not as a practice, but as a natural fragrance of the soul. You no longer give thanks for things, but as the awareness of completeness itself. Gratitude flows because you cannot help but recognize the abundance that already is. Each breath, each moment, each experience shines with the light of divine sufficiency. You see that what you once called miracles are simply the natural unfoldings of a life lived in harmony with its source. And in this peace, love becomes the atmosphere of your being. You love not because you choose to, but because love is what you are. It radiates silently, blessing all who come into your presence without effort or intention. There is no desire to change others, no compulsion to teach or persuade, for you see that the same presence working in you is working in them. Life becomes a continuous act of giving, not through will, but through the overflowing abundance of being. In this resting, you discover that nothing can truly be taken from you, for you possess nothing apart from the infinite. The heart no longer clings, it trusts. The mind no longer argues, it knows. The spirit no longer seeks, it abides. And so you live not as a separate self moving through time, but as timeless awareness experiencing itself in form. The stillness within you is not an escape from life. It is the heart of life itself, forever whole, forever complete, forever one. And now, as the silence deepens and the restless motion of thought gives way to still awareness, something radiant awakens within. You begin to sense the eternal presence that has always been here, unchanging, unbroken, unseparated. It is the gentle pulse beneath every breath, the light behind every perception, the love that sustains all things. You realize that the journey was never about reaching something afar, but about awakening to what has never left you. There is nothing more to seek, nothing to prove, nothing to overcome. The struggle of becoming fades, and the serenity of being takes its place. You rest in the living awareness that all is one, that you are within the infinite and the infinite is within you. The words fall silent, but the truth remains quiet, luminous, eternal. Be still and know. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the heart grows weary of asking. We have asked for signs, for answers, for doors to open. We have pleaded for clarity and direction. Yet the moment we stop asking and begin to trust, an unseen current begins to carry us, quietly, tenderly, toward what has always been prepared for us. When you release the need to demand from life, you begin to hear life whisper back. The silence that once frightened you becomes sacred ground. It is here that you realize God's plan was never hidden. It was merely waiting for your stillness. The moment you stop insisting that things unfold in your way, you make space for the divine order to reveal its perfection. You see, trust is not passive. It is the deepest activity of the soul. To trust is to rest, not in resignation, but in awareness. The awareness that every circumstance, every delay, every unanswered prayer has its purpose. You are no longer chasing the future. You are allowing it to meet you in divine timing. Consider the lilies of the field. They do not toil, they do not scheme, yet they bloom in their appointed season. When you live from trust, you too bloom effortlessly. The anxiety of control fades, replaced by quiet confidence. You stop measuring outcomes and start witnessing miracles. What happens when you stop asking? You begin to see that you were never separate from the source that provides. The supply was never withheld. Your asking simply came from not knowing it was already given. The peace that surpasses understanding does not arrive from answers. It rises from trust. Every moment of your life is held in an infinite rhythm. The people you meet, the challenges you face, the blessings you receive, all are threads in the same divine tapestry. Trust allows you to see that nothing is missing, nothing is wasted, and so rest now. Seize the striving. Open your heart to the quiet assurance that all is well, that all is unfolding exactly as love intends. For when you stop asking and start trusting, you discover you were never waiting for God's plan. You were living in it all along. Trust replaces asking. True peace begins when we stop pleading for outcomes and instead trust the divine rhythm already guiding our path. Stillness reveals clarity. When we quiet the noise of constant asking, the silence becomes sacred space where God's plan unfolds naturally. Trust is active awareness. Trust is not passive surrender. It is a living awareness that every event, delay, or challenge serves a higher purpose. Divine timing is perfect. Like the lilies that bloom in their season, when we align with trust, everything we need arrives at the perfect moment. We are already in God's plan. The realization comes that we were never outside of divine care. God's plan has been carrying us all along. There comes a time in every person's spiritual walk when the heart begins to understand that asking endlessly does not always bring peace. We are conditioned to believe that asking, pleading, and striving are the ways to receive what we desire. Yet, the truth is that asking often springs from a place of fear. Fear that what we need will not come. Fear that the universe has forgotten us. Fear that perhaps our prayers have gone unheard. When we finally reach that sacred point where we stop asking and begin to trust, something deep within us shifts. The energy that once rushed outward in desperation begins to turn inward into a calm and quiet knowing. Trust is not the absence of desire. It is the recognition that all true desires are already known by the infinite before we even form the words to express them. The very presence of a longing in the heart is proof that the fulfillment of it already exists in spirit. When you trust this truth, you no longer beg the heavens to act. You rest in the assurance that they already are. Trust becomes a gentle awareness that life is not happening to you, but through you, and that divine intelligence is orchestrating every event with precision far beyond your understanding. In the stillness of trust, you begin to feel a profound shift in your perception of control. You start to see that asking often arises from a belief that you are separate from the source that provides. You pray as if you must convince a distant God to notice your plight. But when you trust, you realize there is no distance to bridge. The presence that sustains you is not outside of you. It is your very life, breathing through your being, unfolding your path moment by moment. Asking implies separation, trusting affirms oneness. When you trust, your heart becomes quiet and peace begins to flow where anxiety once lived. You stop questioning whether you are on the right path because you understand that there is no wrong path in divine order. Every experience, pleasant or painful, becomes part of the same sacred unfolding. You no longer judge the timing of your blessings because you know that divine timing never errs. The delays that once frustrated you now feel like seasons of preparation. The unanswered prayers that once discouraged you reveal themselves as protection and grace. To trust is to walk through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. It is to release the need to demand specific outcomes and instead surrender to the higher wisdom that knows what you truly need before you do. Trust does not mean passivity, it means living with inner confidence that what is meant for you cannot be lost, and what is not meant for you cannot be forced. In trust, you move with life instead of against it. You act, but without anxiety. You hope, but without fear. You pray, but without pleading. And as you live in this consciousness, you discover something remarkable. The very things you once asked for begin to appear naturally, without struggle. The doors open not because you pushed, but because you were ready to walk through them. Opportunities align effortlessly, people arrive at the right moment, and what once seemed uncertain becomes beautifully clear. This is the quiet power of trust. It magnetizes everything you need, because you are no longer resisting the divine flow. When trust becomes your way of being, you realize that asking was never wrong, but it was always unnecessary. For the divine plan has never required your persuasion, only your participation. And participation comes not through pleading for more, but through resting in the knowing that you already have all that you need, and more is continually unfolding in perfect harmony. When the mind grows still, something miraculous begins to happen. The very silence we once resisted reveals itself as the doorway to divine understanding. We live in a world that teaches us to fill every quiet moment with noise. Words, plans, prayers, thoughts, and fears, as if silence were an absence rather than a presence. But in truth, it is in the stillness that life speaks most clearly. The human mind, restless and impatient, believes that clarity is born from constant analysis and questioning. Yet clarity arises not from noise, but from peace. The guidance we seek does not come through effort, it comes through surrender. When you stop asking and begin to rest in silence, you discover that the universe has been answering all along. You were simply too busy speaking to listen. This is the paradox of the spiritual life. The answers we chase are already within us, but they can only be heard when the asking stops. In that quiet awareness, you begin to perceive a subtle, loving intelligence that has always been guiding your steps. The path that once appeared uncertain begins to glow faintly with direction, not through words, but through an inner sense of rightness. Stillness is not the same as idleness. It is not a withdrawal from life, but a deep participation in it. It is listening to the rhythm of your own soul, to the pulse of divine order that beats beneath every moment. When the noise of fear, worry, and expectation subsides, the gentle whisper of truth becomes audible. You no longer ask, "What should I do?" but instead sense naturally what is yours to do. The inner compass, long clouded by mental noise, begins to point clearly toward peace. This kind of stillness requires trust. The ego resists it because it cannot control silence. It wants movement, reaction, explanation. It wants to plan the outcome before taking the first step. But the soul knows a deeper wisdom, that the universe unfolds in perfect sequence when you are quiet enough to let it. Stillness allows divine timing to reveal itself without interference. What once seemed delayed now appears perfectly timed. What once seemed lost reveals its purpose. You stop wrestling with life and begin to walk in harmony with it. In this quiet space, even your relationship with prayer changes. You no longer pray to be heard, you pray to listen. The act of prayer becomes an opening rather than a request, a communion rather than a transaction. You realize that God does not need your words, He needs your awareness. The still heart becomes a sacred vessel through which divine wisdom pours. Answers are not sent from above, they rise gently from within. When you live from stillness, life takes on a new rhythm. Situations that once triggered anxiety now invite calm observation. The need to control outcomes fades, replaced by faith in the invisible harmony working behind the scenes. You begin to notice that when you act from stillness, your actions are more effective, your words more inspired, and your timing more precise. You are no longer reacting to life, you are responding with grace. The world outside you may still rush and clamor, but within there is a sanctuary untouched by chaos. That sanctuary is where divine guidance speaks, softly, steadily, and with infinite patience. The mind may not always understand it, but the heart recognizes its truth. In that sacred stillness, you come to see that God's plan was never silent. You were simply not still enough to hear it. And as the silence deepens, the veil lifts, revealing that what you once called waiting was actually being guided all along. Trust is not the act of doing nothing. It is the quiet strength of knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. It is the deepest activity of the soul, unseen, steady, and powerful. When you trust, you participate in life from the awareness that there is a wisdom greater than your reasoning, a rhythm beyond your control. You begin to understand that every experience carries divine intention, even when it does not fit your human understanding. To trust is to stand calmly in the middle of uncertainty and still know that all is well. When we speak of trust, we often imagine it as a passive waiting, a kind of spiritual stillness without motion. But true trust is alive. It is the inner movement of faith that aligns you with divine timing and purpose. It is not the same as resignation or indifference. Resignation says, "There is nothing I can do," while trust says, "There is nothing I need to fear." In trust, you move forward without anxiety, because you no longer depend on the outer world to confirm your safety. You are guided by something deeper, the inner conviction that divine wisdom cannot fail. This awareness transforms how you meet every challenge. Where once you saw obstacles, you now see preparation. Where once you felt delay, you now recognize divine sequencing. Every moment, even the difficult ones, becomes an invitation to strengthen your faith. You begin to see that what you called detours were actually the straight path seen from a higher view. The unseen hand that directs your steps never loses its way. Trust allows you to rest in that truth without needing constant proof. As trust deepens, fear begins to lose its power. Fear feeds on the need for control, on the belief that you must manage every outcome. Trust dissolves that illusion. You realize that life does not require your control, only your cooperation. There is a natural intelligence within all things, the same intelligence that causes the tides to move, the stars to shine, and the heart to beat without instruction. That same intelligence governs your life. When you trust it, you move with grace, even through the unknown. You do not need to understand every detail, you only need to remain open to the unfolding. Trust also changes the way you perceive time. When you live from fear, you are always rushing, always pushing, always trying to force results. But when you live from trust, time becomes your ally. You understand that divine timing is never late. What belongs to you cannot miss you, and what is not yours cannot stay. In this awareness, patience becomes peace rather than frustration. You wait, not with tension, but with quiet confidence, knowing that the invisible work of spirit is taking place even when you cannot see it. To live in trust is to shift from asking, "Why is this happening?" to saying, "This too is part of the plan." You stop seeking explanations and start seeing patterns of grace. The mind's need to analyze gives way to the heart's capacity to accept. You no longer demand that life meet your expectations. Instead, you open yourself to the divine pattern that exceeds them. Trust reveals that there is order in what appears chaotic, purpose in what seems painful, and direction in what feels uncertain. As this awareness becomes your foundation, your energy changes. You no longer carry the heavy burden of forcing outcomes or fearing loss. You act but without attachment. You plan but without anxiety. You hope but without desperation. Each step you take is lighter, guided by an invisible assurance that you are not walking alone. And in that gentle surrender, life begins to unfold effortlessly. You do not abandon action, you infuse it with faith. You do not stop caring, you stop worrying. That is the sacred balance of true trust, a living awareness that while your hands move, your heart rests in the care of something infinitely wiser. When you begin to trust divine timing, life transforms from a series of random events into a symphony of purpose. You start to notice that nothing comes too soon and nothing arrives too late. Everything meets you precisely when you are ready to receive it. The human mind, impatient and eager, often wants to rush the process, to make things happen through force, strategy, or insistence. Yet, the soul understands that timing is sacred. Just as flowers bloom only when the season calls them forth, so too does every event in your life unfold according to a divine rhythm beyond human planning. There is a subtle beauty in realizing that your delays are not denials and your waiting is not wasted time. When you trust divine timing, you stop measuring your progress by how quickly things happen. Instead, you begin to see value in preparation. You understand that every pause is polishing your character, every setback is strengthening your faith, and every closed door is a gentle redirection toward what is truly meant for you. The same force that spins the planets and directs the tides is guiding your journey. To rush divine timing is to interfere with perfection. Trusting the process requires humility. The humility to admit that your limited vision cannot see the full picture. From where you stand, the road may appear twisted, delayed or uncertain, but from the higher view of spirit, every turn leads you exactly where you need to go. Divine timing never makes mistakes. What seems like a detour is often a safeguard, preventing you from reaching a destination before you are ready to inhabit it. There is a divine intelligence that ensures that the right people, opportunities, and lessons appear in your life at the exact moment when your soul can benefit most from them. When you surrender to this truth, peace begins to replace pressure. You no longer demand answers, you allow them to reveal themselves. The frantic energy that once made you chase outcomes transforms into quiet expectancy. You realize that waiting is not inactivity, it is participation in the unseen work of the universe. While your mind rests, your destiny is aligning itself behind the veil. The timing of divine order cannot be accelerated by worry nor delayed by fear. What is meant for you will find you because it is already written into the fabric of your existence. This trust also transforms how you experience other people. You no longer compare your path with theirs. You stop looking at others' achievements as proof that you are behind. You understand that every soul is unfolding at its own divine pace, that no two journeys are identical, and that your moment of blooming will not look like anyone else's. Comparison fades when you trust divine timing, because you realize that your story is being written by the same hand that writes the stars. And the stars never compete for their light. When you truly trust this timing, you also find gratitude in moments that once frustrated you. You thank the delays because they protected you from mistakes. You bless the unanswered prayers because they guided you toward truer ones. You appreciate the slowness because it taught you patience and depth. You see how the pauses in your life allowed you to grow roots before you reached upward to bloom. Everything that once felt withheld now appears as a gift of preparation. And so each day becomes less about striving and more about allowing. You wake with peace, knowing that you are never early, never late, only perfectly aligned with the rhythm of divine purpose. When divine timing becomes your compass, you walk through life with serenity. You stop chasing miracles, for you see they have been unfolding all along, right on time. There comes a moment of deep awakening when you realize that you were never outside of God's plan. All the striving, searching, and questioning begin to quiet as you see that everything, even your confusion, has been part of a greater harmony. The mind, limited in its understanding, often imagines that God's plan is something distant, something to be found after years of effort or spiritual discipline. But the truth is far simpler and far more profound. The divine plan is not a destination, it is the very fabric of the life you are living now. Every breath, every encounter, every experience, whether joyful or painful, is woven into it with perfect care. When you understand that you are already in the plan, fear loses its hold. You no longer believe that one wrong decision can separate you from your purpose. You stop worrying about missing opportunities or making mistakes, because you recognize that even your detours are used by the divine to guide you back to center. Nothing is wasted in the unfolding of divine order. The missteps you regret, the delays that frustrate you, the losses that broke your heart, all of them are threads in the same tapestry, each contributing to the wholeness of who you are becoming. To live in this awareness is to walk through life with trust instead of tension. You begin to see that you were never meant to control the script, only to play your part with sincerity and faith. The plan does not depend on your perfection, it depends on your willingness to listen and to follow the quiet guidance that rises from within. That gentle inner voice, the one that urges peace when your mind screams for control, is the voice of the plan itself. When you follow it, life begins to flow more smoothly. The coincidences that occur, the doors that open, the people who arrive at just the right time. These are not accidents but divine affirmations that you are moving in rhythm with the higher order. The beauty of realizing you are already in God's plan is that it frees you from striving. You stop living as though you are trying to earn your way into grace. You stop chasing meaning, because meaning is already present in every moment, even the simplest actions. A kind word, a gentle thought, a moment of gratitude, become sacred expressions of your place in the plan. Nothing is too small to carry divine purpose, for God works not only in great miracles but in quiet details. As you live with this awareness, your vision begins to change. You start to see unity where once you saw separation. You recognize that every person you meet is also a participant in this same divine orchestration. The people who challenge you are shaping your strength. The ones who comfort you are reminders of divine tenderness. Even those who seem to oppose you are playing their part in your awakening. When you see life this way, judgment fades and compassion deepens. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to whisper, "Thank you for showing me what I need to learn." This realization brings profound peace. You no longer fear the unknown, because you understand that the unknown is simply the next page of a story already written by love. You do not need to rush to the end to know it will be good. You live each day as a willing partner in creation, trusting that the one who designed the stars also designed your path with equal precision. There is no distance between you and the plan, no separation between your life and divine intention. You are and always have been exactly where you are meant to be. And in that awareness, Asking ceases, striving dissolves, and gratitude becomes your prayer. The revelation dawns that you were never searching for God's plan. You were living in it every moment, guided by an unseen hand that never stopped holding you, even when you thought you were lost. And so, the moment you stop asking and begin to trust, life itself becomes your prayer. You no longer chase signs or demand answers, because your heart recognizes the quiet certainty that everything is already unfolding as it should. The storms no longer shake you, for you know they are passing waves on an eternal sea of divine order. Each breath becomes a reminder that you are cared for, guided, and held in a love far greater than your understanding. Rest now in that awareness, not as a hope, but as a knowing. The plan of God is not waiting for you somewhere in the distance. It is alive within you, breathing through every moment of your existence. Walk gently, trust deeply, and let your soul be still, for in the quiet of trust you will finally see what has been true all along. You were never forgotten, never abandoned, and never outside the perfect unfolding of divine grace.